Let's take a look at the MChart chart editor. We're already in the WordPress admin panel, viewing the list of existing charts. There are quite a few charts here, but we'll start by creating a new one. Click Add Chart. This is the default MChart interface. At the top, you'll find the title and subtitle fields. Below that is the spreadsheet interface for your data, along with CSV import and export controls, the chart preview, and the chart settings for this chart. We'll title this chart Favorite Colors. For the data, we'll keep it simple and use red, blue, and green. We'll say that 50% of people liked red, 25% liked green, and 25% liked blue. If we scroll down, you may have noticed that the chart updated live as we made those changes. This is the live preview of your chart. Right now, it's set to a line chart, which isn't a great fit for this data set, so the result looks a little unusual. If we click the chart type field and select Pie, the chart becomes much more appropriate for this data. The preview updates live, both for the data and for nearly everything else you can change about the chart. For example, if we uncheck the option to show labels, the labels are removed immediately. The preview is live, but it is still only a preview. None of these changes are saved until we click Save Draft or Publish. Otherwise, those changes will be lost, even though the live preview reflects them. So let's save this chart by clicking Save Draft. At this point, the image for this chart is also generated. You'll now see a URL for that image, along with a View button to open it. Next to that, you'll also see the short code. If you're using a theme that doesn't use the block editor, you can embed your chart by pasting that short code into your posts or pages, and there's a copy button to make that easy. Most modern WordPress sites use the block UI, which will be covered in a different video. For now, let's go back to the charts listing and open a few other charts, because I want to show some different ways of formatting data. What you saw previously is the simplest way to format data, but you can also format data with multiple series in the same data set. I'm going to open this Cucumber Yield by Top Producer Country chart to show what that looks like. Here, you can see a list of countries: Spain, China, United States, and Russia, with years running from 2014 to 2023. Each country is its own series of data, and you can see that reflected in the line chart. This is a useful way to compare different countries or other categories while plotting them together. Some chart types support this format, but not all, so you'll want to check the documentation for a given chart type. For a pie chart, for example, this data format is not available. Another important detail to notice is the Parse In setting. If we go down to the chart settings, you'll see that this chart is set to parse data in rows. That makes perfect sense for this data set, because we want each country to be its own series. However, if we wanted the data grouped by years, we could switch that setting to columns. When we do that, each year is treated as its own series of data. In this case, that is not what we want, but if the data were formatted differently, it might be the correct option. This setting is important for having full control over how your data is ultimately parsed by the plugin. We'll switch it back to rows here and scroll back up. Now the chart looks correct again. Next, we'll look at a few other chart types that use either unique data formatting or, in one case, an additional interface in the Sheets UI. First, we'll go back to charts and open the tree map chart. Tree maps use their own data format. Here, you can see data grouped by regions. Within those regions are countries, and each country has its own value. MChart interprets that structure and turns it into a working tree map. In this example, we have a region, the Mediterranean. Within that region is a group of countries, and each country is sized and colored based on its value. Turkey, for example, has 750,000 tons as its value, so its area is scaled and colored accordingly. Over in the Americas, the grouping is much smaller because the values are lower overall, and there are fewer countries represented in the region as well. Another chart type with a specific format is box plots and violins. If we open the box plot chart in our database, you can see that we have multiple series of data, but no labels across the top. That's because box plots are essentially based on a series of sample values. Those values are then plotted, with the chart overlaid on top of them. In fact, because the Show Sample Points option is turned on, you can see all of these light gray dots. Those dots represent the individual values being plotted, and you can see how they correspond to the box plot drawn over them. Of course, you can remove those by unchecking the checkbox. Many of the data formats MChart uses require matching row lengths. In this case, though, that is not required. You can remove values, and the chart will simply compress the range accordingly, since after removing those values, the overall range of the samples was reduced. Let's open another chart type with an interesting setup, because the UI is quite different. If we click into radars, you'll notice that the data format itself is basically the same as a pie chart. It's very simple. However, one of the main strengths of the radar chart is comparing different sets of data. To support that, even though the data format is simple and not multi-series, the spreadsheet UI allows multiple sheets for each chart. You can see here that we have different data sheets indicated by tabs, starting with dill pickles and kimchi and continuing down the list, and you can click between those different sheets using the tabs. You can remove sheets as well as add more. Other chart types that use multiple sheets include scatter charts and bubble charts. We could go on, of course, and we skipped plenty of features, such as the CSV import and export, themes, and more, but sometimes it's better to keep things short. Hopefully, this gave you a quick overview of how the chart editor works and the flexibility you have through the settings and data formats.